Good morning. How are we doing today? It is blowing outside. We got snow just coming down like crazy, but it's my favorite kind of snow. It's the one that's kind of like dry. It's about 22 degrees outside. It's nice and toasty inside. I got a nice stack of wood inside that's half a cord. That's 2 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet. So this stretches out 8 feet along the wall. But on the outside, I've been practicing the old style trapper Alaska Trapper or the Swiss style of just stacking basically a whole new wall on the outside. And I've just done one side, and it's amazing how effective it's been in warming the house. So this is my advice to you down in the southeast who are not well accustomed to how to deal with all this weather that's impacting you with the storm of the century, part deux, which is stack your firewood outside, crisscross them. And basically what I do is I make a stack. I'll take you outside this week and do a little tour of the wood stack outside because I'm just building it, and I'm going to do all this wall too. But this whole wall over here is completely covered with firewood up to about 7 feet high. And it's wild because what's happened is we had a beautiful sunny day yesterday, and the sun was absorbed onto those logs. And all night, even though the logs are outside, the warmth was actually transferred into the living room from the outside. And it just kept the house just perfect. Not too hot, not too cold, not needing a direct heat source constantly warming the house, where you finally just warm the house and the house absorbs the heat and then releases it back into the room. And so you have this kind of surround, almost like a pechka, what we call a pechka up here in Russian, which is a masonry stove. So when I build the log home, I'm going to build it over there on that side of the property. Handcrafted log home, 25 foot by 25 foot, 2-story plus loft. And hopefully I can get it done this summer. If not, then I'll at least get the foundation in, and then I can get the walls. If I get the walls and the roof up, I can extend the build through whatever other duties I got to do or traveling I have to do. But yeah, stack your wood on the outside, stack your wood on the inside. Like the wood that's in here, if I've got half a cord in here, that wood is absorbing direct heat from the stove and it's releasing it into the room also. But it's just a total night and day contrast of what it's like. The old trappers used to do that. That's why you always put a 4-foot extension. You did a 4-foot extension for your log home in order to keep the direct rain from hitting your walls all the time, but also it helps keep the snow off during the winter when you've got your firewood all stacked up around your hunting cabin or trapper's cabin or home. Like that handcrafted log home will be home. It's nice to have a backup home on your property in case your house number 1 burns down. That's actually one of the customs that used to be up here. People don't do it as much anymore. You always had an extra home, especially because you live by yourself. There wasn't people living around you. Like people have started moving in of late, running from the lower 48, dealing with whatever they've been dealing with down there, or afraid of what's coming. Rightfully so. Today, planning on talking about a number of subjects. It's funny, I have my list set up the day before, and then suddenly something just hits me. It's just wild. Like this weekend, I was listening to a guy, Roman Yampolsky. He's a professor. He's like the AI guy. And he was talking about AI. Basically, it's just wild. You can think about these people like Elon Musk and all these others who are looking at AI and how it's going to come and, quote, be a benefit. But nobody's really talking about the number of jobs that are going to be gone and how that's going to play out. And I'm going to do a breakdown on the psychology of the power elite so you can really understand where they're coming from. Oh, by the way, I'm looking at my shirt. Somebody asked me about my shirt. Why do I have an orange shirt? I wear an orange shirt because I'm a bush pilot. And one of the things you not worry about, but you're prepared for is you go down. If you go down, hopefully somebody's going to come and rescue you. And let's say you're hunting or you don't want to be seen. All you got to do is just zip up your shirt, your coat, and you're good. Nobody sees it. But if you want to be seen, either take the jacket off or take the shirt off and you've got a flag, which makes all... It's amazing how people don't realize how hard it is to find somebody from the air. That's why we train up here. Actually, if you're part with Civil Air Patrol, you go out flying with Civil Air Patrol, and you're practicing a variety of things. You're practicing on homing in on a signal, on an ELT, or you're also practicing on how to find somebody on the ground. And the sad thing about it is that that might have been the reason that Amelia Earhart died and was never rescued. That she actually landed on a reef at Gardner Island in the South Pacific. They landed that Lockheed. Her navigator probably was injured and got sepsis and died because of that. But the most important thing about it is that the Navy and Coast Guard did a search of the area, and they didn't see anything. But the guy that was talking about it on the show was saying that, you know what, I've flown over. We had video where we're shooting of people, a bunch of people on the beach, and nobody could see it in the video. You had to point in the video to show them where they were. That's how bad it is. That's the reason it's just custom. And I have a bunch of these. So it's like, it's an easy shirt. It's a very comfortable shirt. It's the same shirt you see guys working down in Texas or in any type of DOT, just so you don't hit them. So wear the stuff that people don't want to get hit on the freeway. It's good to have either as an undershirt and or just have along with you. It's not a conflict with anything else you're playing with, unless you want to be a super ninja. We'll talk about super ninjas. Man, it's hilarious. And this other thing I wanted to talk about. So the Antichrist, people are saying, David Icke, he's talking about it. I agree. I think the Antichrist is in the AI. It's in the AI. And it's a dimensional control that's going to be put on people. And when it comes, it's going to be, it's kind of like, it's the old saying, it's like vampires, Dracula, Satan. The devil can only come into your house if he's invited. That's it. The devil only comes into the house if invited. If the devil is told to stay out, the devil will stay out. Cannot come in unless you invite him. And that's what we've been doing for decades now. It's just inviting and inviting and inviting. And all the things that are happening. And this wild thing that's happening in Oregon, IP28, the Peace Act, which is a animal protection act, they say. Well, that Animal Protection Act is going to prevent you from hunting, fishing, raising your own animals. You won't have to be able to keep chickens. You won't be able to raise your own chickens that have eggs. You won't be able to be a rancher. You won't be able to be a farmer. So what's that all about? This is the pure essence, distillation of what all this stuff has been about animal protection throughout the states, at the anti-hunting. It's not about protecting the animals, because money has been coming in through hunting and fishing that has always been going through the Robertson Act since 1930 to protect wildlife and the environment. So if you don't have that money coming in, it's going to only come in from one people. Who's that going to be? The power elites. And that's if they'd like to. And if they don't see the cost effectiveness of it, they're not going to. Like, they have a bunch of ranches throughout California that they own. They don't even, a lot of times don't even visit. So the only protection they're going to do is on their own properties. And when I was working in California, and I lived in California, I was working as a outdoor writer. I was the last outdoor columnist for the Times of San Mateo County. It was the last family-owned newspaper in the Bay Area, if not California, if not the country. And I was covering a bunch of things. I was covering like the protection of the unwarranted protection of the mountain lion in California, as though it was endangered in somehow. when in actuality there was no way it was endangered. And now you're seeing the effects of it, which is there's an overpopulation of mountain lions all throughout the Bay Area especially, that they're thinning out the deer in the areas. Which people say, oh, that's great, because then you don't run into deer when you're trying to drive up to your home up in the hills. And you won't have to worry about that. Well, when they get done with the deer, if they haven't already started getting into your little dogs and cats that you let out at night to go pee, and suddenly they don't come back, and you wonder where did it go? Because it went in the belly of a mountain lion. That's what happens. People like to think that, oh, there was a world before humans. That's only in the imagination of this cabal that is actually wanting to have no humans on this planet. So they create this illusion that there was a time where there were no humans, but there was always humans when there were mammals who had developed. And so before the, quote, white man came from Europe, the Indian, the native, the local tribes, I used to be able to rattle them off. I don't even remember anymore. Even around San Francisco Bay. I mean, that's actually, when the Spanish first arrived in San Francisco Bay, they saw all these natives. And not one over the age of 20 was free from claw marks from brown bears. So there are actually bigger brown bears in California than there are here, up here, like in my neighborhood. And we get them up to 10 feet. About 1,100 pounds. Yeah. And so what you're having right now is you're having an actual, they're going to do starvation. And they're doing it through like geoengineering. They're trying to thin us out. And that was enacted by the Club of Rome. The Club of Rome was the one that really started coming down with the idea that there are too many people in the world and they have to be thinned out. And so the Club of Rome and the Trilateral Commission working together. Bill Gates is the public. We'll talk about that. Bill Gates. You ever wondered, how is it that some idiot who's freaking like a college dropout, and was he really doing too well at HP or Intel or no IBM before he stole the code or what became Microsoft? Or was it handed to him? Elon Musk, do you actually think that he was the one who came out with all this? And Sergey Brin with Google? These are all actors. And when you understand that you realize these are all actors. These are the representations. This is just like George H.W. Bush's father, who was picked as an actor, as the front man for selling oil and gasoline to the Nazis during the war, so that the Rockefellers wouldn't get slammed with it, right? So you got the Sergey Brins. You've got, these people didn't come up with this stuff. They were picked. Mark Zuckerberg, picked. These are picked. People are picked. When you realize and see that, I mean, you really understand them in an interview and you see that these people don't have the brain sense to do anything. They're stupid. These are stupid people. Look at all the politicians. Every single politician is picked, not just in this country, throughout the world. Macron, Starmer, every one of them now. It's beyond the shadow of a doubt. When you watch them, the voting, your elections, they don't do anything anymore. There was a point. But now it is just so in your face. And they're doing this for a reason, creating chaos. They want you to be disrupted and not balanced and centered in your core. And being centered in your core has nothing to do with the politics that's going outside. You need to remember that. When you remember that, people say it's finding your light, finding your God, finding the God within you, finding your center to the earth, etc., etc., etc. When you have that and you're balanced and you're grounded and you're working from a point of self-control and self-direction, you can achieve whatever you need to achieve. And right now, there's a lot to be achieved. Whew. Man, it is just so wild. And how I have to watch it myself because I am trying to break down the information that's coming in delivered to you in a manner that you can use. For instance, a question, where can I go to? Where can I run to? Would it freak you out if I told you right now the best option is actually Russia? Russia of all places? Shoot, when I was in my younger years, they were the direct enemy. The Soviet Union was, right? And now I would say, shoot, if I wasn't here in Alaska, I'd be in Siberia. I wouldn't be in St. Petersburg. I definitely wouldn't be in Moscow, but I'd be anywhere east of there. Anywhere east of there. Could you imagine having your own farm in Russia? Why Russia? If you are from the West, see, Russia, they try to make it look like Russia is the East. The East is China. Russia is basically kind of like the Midwest. But it's because it's still Western. It's that balance between East and West. But most importantly, religiously, it is more tied to the origins of the United States, of England, of the West, than China will ever be. Because there are people who say, oh, well, I'll go to China. The only ones in China are those who are being, what's the word? Entertained, or it's at the entertainment of the government of China. For instance, people who are funding all the riots in this country. I forget the name of the guy in China, but he lives in China. He's an American citizen. But his objective is to bring socialism full on to the United States so they can totally take over. This will be like real socialism, not the stuff and communism, not the stuff that they have in China right now. This will be like the Mao Zedong kind of communism. Yeah, that's what they want in this country. And that's why you hear all this stuff like with Gene Wu. And so they're using the language of the oppressed. Really pay attention. When people start using the language of the oppressed, they're trying to get you all worked up so that you will do what they will do, that you will do what they want you to do in a manner that they want you to do. Take over the country. I mean, can you believe that there's a senator who actually says there's enough of us meaning non-white, to take over the country? Right now, that's actually not true. And that's what's insane. I've always felt that the reason that the illegals were brought into this country, not invited in this country, not just invited, but actually brought into this country by the prior administration in coordination with China, was to create a bloodbath. And the bloodbath is not going to be whites. It'll be a genocidal. It's the same thing that I'm seeing right now. So what you're hearing in the news about taking away our First Amendment rights, that we cannot demonstrate publicly, that we cannot gather peaceably. See, that's it's in the Constitution, to peaceably gather. Riots don't do a damn thing except look good on TV and incite people. So people just stop doing the freaking riots. It's just stupid. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get shot. It's against the law. You can't riot. You can protest peacefully, as defined in the Constitution. You can gather and protest peacefully. That's it. You cannot freaking block law enforcement from doing things. You cannot block government officials from doing things that we have asked them to do. But that's the reason this is happening. And it's been set up. It was set up when they brought in all the illegals in order to create chaos again. It's about creating chaos. Remember, they couldn't get us into another war. They're starting to realize they can't get us into another war unless they absolutely push us into a point where Russia just loses his mind. I've just been amazed that Putin has not nuked Europe already. And I think it's because he knows what the game is and he doesn't want to play it. He's doing just enough to get what he needs to get and to defend the Russians that are in those areas that he owns now. Basically from Odessa up, the Crimea, and eastern Ukraine. He has no interest in that area to the west. What's the point? Unless he was trying to create a buffer. But if he was trying to create a buffer, He's going to war. But he's holding, and he's been holding for quite a few years now, much to the disdain of NATO and the WEF. Remember, Putin went to the WEF. And what I got from that is he saw what was happening. He knew what they were doing, which was doing the relocation immigration, bringing Africans up, totally diluting the cultures in Europe, doing the same here, bringing in all the illegals into this country, diluting our culture as quickly as possible so that people don't even remember what it means to be an American anymore. That's what this is all about. If you destroy the culture and the society, you've won. You don't have to have a war. You've conquered the country. That's it. They've learned this. They don't go to war anymore. Why? If you've got social media and you've got TV and you've got radio. If you can totally flip over a society, oh, and most importantly, you've got education. Because remember, old people like me and you, who are over the age of 50, 55, you remember what it was like before. And for those of us who are over 60, we absolutely remember. But I definitely know there is a shift between those who were born before and after 1965. There is a difference. And there's a difference between those of us who were born before 1950. 1955. I say that's the other break. There's a group, 1955, 1958. If you're born after 1958 and before 1965, you have a totally different understanding of the world than those who would come in before and those who would come in later. Totally different. We went to a different school system. We had a different culture. We didn't have the same type of technology. I mean, shoot, I didn't start carrying a Walkman, a Sony Walkman, until I was in the war. I used to set up my ear pads, my earphones with a Walkman so I could listen to tunes on our operations when we were coming in and also when we were on our way back to unwind. A Walkman. Now, I can fly my plane. I can have my iPhone that I'm also using with ForeFlight to navigate with, and I can pop in some tunes directly into my headset. I mean, it's wild. Technology has been wonderful. It's made us more comfortable. It's enabled us to go and do things. But it's coming at the cost. Remember, everything has a cost. The question is it worth the squeeze? And the squeeze that's coming, we had this big explosion of population that happened after World War II. And it's just been constantly going. Part of it's been going down, especially in modern societies where we've had more wealth. And so wealth goes down, and wealth goes up. Kids being popped out lessens. Except in areas like Islamist countries and in Asian countries. So that has become an issue, but they're not thinking about thinning those people out. Well, actually, they have been, because they've been trying to get them on starvation, and they've been trying to get them on different vaccines, which is wild. I wanted to tell you a quick story about the vaccines. Why I've always had questions about them. See, I had a teacher. His name, he was a English teacher back in high school at Carlman High School in Belmont, California. Stan Fox. I'm trying to remember the name of his friend, who actually was one of my instructors too. But he was the one that got hammered by the initial flu vaccine. So the initial flu vaccine, they were developing it in the late 70s, early 80s, and trying to perfect it. And so they were testing it on the elderly. And basically it put the friend, co-teacher of Stan Fox, put him in a wheelchair. They were both naval officers in World War II. Both served on ships. And here's one who was still walking. Not only that, he was still walking after having had a horrible car accident in Nevada when there was no speed limit, and he plowed right into a drunk. And they ended up cutting 2 inches off his femur in order to repair his legs that were totally crushed in the car accident. And that's why he was actually, I'm 6 foot. He was 6 foot when he was teaching us in school. in high school. He was, God, he looked like, yeah, as I recall him now, he was about 5'5", 5'6". Yeah, so he lost actually about 4 inches. But his friend was totally crippled because of the vaccine. And now we have all these things that have been happening. You're seeing people dropping left and right. You're having people with miscarriages. You're having all these other things that are happening. And how many people are asking the right questions? What is it about and why is it happening? The Club of Rome is all about thinning us out. There's stuff in the Epstein files. If you've had a chance, go over to the Epstein files and do the Epstein. If you go on Google, just type in Epstein DOJ library and type in stuff like pandemic or vaccine and find out what Epstein knew about it and what the objective of it is and was and has always been. And it floors me because even now, I think that's kind of lessened. You don't see as many advertisements for the Native community up here. Go get your vaccine. Go get it. Go get it. Telling people, go. Oh, you got to go in. Go get it. So they're going after the minorities. They're going after the Native people up here. Why? Because where the money comes from. It's all about the money. And I got a big question. When is it that the central bankers, the globalist bankers, see, we don't have our own real central bank. I wish we did. That's why it doesn't say US note. It says US federal note. Federal note means it goes to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not a public entity. It's a private entity owned by a number of central banks, globalist banks around the world. Can you imagine that? Your own country is basically divvied up by all these bankers. And that's why they've been going after all these countries that had banks like Libya and Venezuela. That's the real reason they had their own banks. Were they working efficiently? No. Libya could have, especially when he was going to bring back the dinar as a gold dinar. Wow. We're talking ancient Rome. The power of Rome before they started diluting it. Copper. And totally, like, first we have gold and then we have paper. And the paper is supposed to be a confidence. And then Nixon takes us off the gold standard and we have nothing but trust. So people are trusting that this piece of paper means something to the rest of the world. And evidently it doesn't anymore because we're losing we're no longer the reserve currency, which is wild. With the British, the pound stopped being the reserve currency when it went to the US dollar, which was backed by gold under Bretton Woods. And that's what they're doing right now. They don't know where to go. And remember what I said about strong times make strong men, and good times, and good times makes weak men, right? That's where we're at right now. This is the reason our education system is so screwed up. Have you been seeing the ads for Harvard? My dad has an MBA had an MBA because he's dead. But he got an MBA from Harvard because they had a program that if you've been working and you got your company to sponsor you, they had a rapid course that you could get your MBA. I think it was like in 6 months or maybe a year instead of like the normal 2, 3. Yeah. I don't even know if they still have that program anymore at Harvard. But people who went to Harvard back then went to a school that had teachers and professors who were hard men, who had gone through hard times. But now we have professors and teachers at these high-level elite schools that have turned them into trash cans of wokeism and all this other DEI crap. They've destroyed the education system. So if you have a populace that thinks they're so hot because they went to Harvard, but then you realize, it's like, you do realize that the stuff that's being taught in Harvard was taught in high school when my dad was in high school, right? You do realize that. At the stuff that my dad was studying at Harvard in the early 60s after having worked in the field and then just going and getting an MBA, an MBA in order to go to the next level, because you had to go through an MBA so you could go to a higher, like that's how he was able to go and become a director for Asia Pacific Rim for Kohler International. That's why I was raised in Asia. I was raised in Asia. That's why I have more of an Asian understanding of life, that then was tempered by the time I got to the States and started seeing what the, quote, Western ideas were about how life is run. And it's interesting to see the difference in the play back and forth and how that goes. So my little rabbit holes that I've been going through over the weekend, because I do my research. I'm constantly looking at things. And, you know, I'm working on my books. So my objective is to have my Central America War memoir going to be done in 2 months. And then after that, I go into my Native American shamanic adventures. Red Road Home. Hunter, warrior, healer. Which is the process. See, in the ancient ways, you had to first be a hunter, because you become a hunter so you can learn to track. And then you become a warrior, because then you have to go and fight for the soul. You have to fight for the person, for the client, in order to get them healed. And then you have to be the healer, which is all the skills and the nuts and bolts of understanding how people heal and come back. And I'm not just talking about just, the psychological stuff. I'm actually talking about medicine. Why is that our medicine has just gotten so cattywamped? And it's new. That's why if you talk to a doctor, shoot, my uncle is a retired doctor in Ecuador. He was a GP. But the problem is they listen to pharma. Big pharma runs doctors. And if the big pharma runs the doctors, they have control, right? That's one of the things that's the problem. You have these big issues for the whole world in terms of medicine and how medicine is being run. And it's being run by pharma. And big pharma is being run by the central bankers, the globalist central bankers. And if pharma is being run by the globalist central bankers, it's run by the different cabals. And they're all vying for power. Like people like to say, oh, it's the cabal. There's not one cabal. There's a variety of cabals. It's kind of like a conspiracy. Conspiracy as a word. Let's be really clear on this. There was a comment by one of my subscribers and followers on this talk, saying, "Oh, I was teaching about how the United States is a conspiracy." Well, yeah, it's a conspiracy. People got together. That's the definition of conspiracy. But see, that's the thing about how it then becomes an evil thing. There is good and evil in every person. It's just a question of how far you lean to the left or to the right, to the light or to the dark. And there are people who are so far lost in the dark. And then there are people so far in the light that they can't even imagine. I mean, that's one of the things that it's this disbelief. We have this disbelief in this world right now that they can't believe that evil can have arrived in this world to the level it's arrived with pedophilia and child sacrifice. They can't believe that. But if you went back 100 years ago, if you went back, let's see, where would they do child sacrifices? Oof, I know they had cannibalism in New Guinea up until the 60s. That's the reason. Remember, it's self-interest. What's this thing about, going out to the rest of the world under the Rockefellers? Why was it that Nelson Rockefeller, I think it's Nelson A. Rockefeller, his son was killed by cannibals? That's the reason. It wasn't like, we got kumbaya together and let's make a better world. No, it's because I don't want another of my children to go off somewhere and then get killed. So it's on a personal level. And that's how this is going to fix. This was talked about by Roman Yoplansky, where he was trying to get across. The question was put to him: "So how can we get these elites to basically not create Judgment Day or Terminator, the real Terminator, instead of just the movie, with AI. And it's getting it across to these idiots that you're crossing the line. And you know what? You and your progeny, all your children, your descendants, will be wiped out if AI succeeds in the manner that it could succeed in a very dark, evil way, which is total annihilation of life on this planet. Because these people, they don't think in those manners. They just think out of ego and can I. And this is very Frankist. I'm going to talk about the Frankists because this is the thing that the Jewish community doesn't want to talk about are the Franks. Frankists and Frankism is basically, what was it called? It was, salvation through sin. Frankism is the belief system that you will be saved through the amount of sin you commit. That's why Frankists believed in pedophilia. They believed that the family members should have sex with their own. Not because, it's some enlightening thing. No, it's because it is a sin. They know it's bad. And that's why they believe they should be doing it. And that's the belief system of the evil cabal. Think about that. That's why when you actually go into this mindset, that's why I have to take a break. I was going through this freaking rabbit hole. It was getting darker and darker and darker. And this is publicly available information in the Epstein files. Emails going back and forth talking about how it was so great, having those little girls to Epstein. And what pisses me off is, it is redacted because, they shouldn't be redacted. These people should be in prison. And these people should be hanging. And there's a lot of other people who should be hanging for treason in this country, amongst many other countries. Because all other countries have repercussions of treason being execution. There's a lot of people who should be freaking hanging from a rope or should have been put up in front of a firing squad. I prefer the rope because you can't guarantee it's going to be efficient. And it's not as fast as a bullet that's well placed. I don't think these people should get that benefit. That's how evil these people are. And it's public. It's there. That's what just blows me away. The people are just, they don't want to look at it. They don't want to know that this has been going on. That this has been allowed to go on. Because that means if you haven't stopped it or attempt to stop it, that means you're in collusion with it. And people say, no, I'm not. Well, then it goes to Anne Frank. Were you helping her? Or were you just turning a blind eye? Or were you like Soros, actually going into their homes later and taking all their wealth and riches? That's what's so wild about this. And how these games are being played. All the games that are being played. So, remember from the last talk, we were talking about how my doctor friend in Argentina thinks it's an experiment. But is the experiment just down there too? Or is it up here? And is the experiment also in Europe? How long are the Brits going to keep on taking their country being invaded, their women being raped and assaulted, and their own countrymen being assaulted and murdered? How long are you going to take that? How long is Sweden going to take that? So you're going to go and attack Russia when it's your own government who is your biggest enemy. Think about it. That's the reason your government is trying to get you into a war with Russia, so that you won't take to task, as I said, call them to the mast, your own government. Your own government is your worst enemy. In the UK, Sweden, Germany, France, United States, Canada, Mexico, Argentina. Your governments are crucifying you. And this is the thing about the experiment. The experiment, it's the MK Ultra. Traumatize, and then insert the directive. Traumatize, insert the directive. That's how that guy, Colonel Aquino. I mean, how is this somebody who is actively, publicly being on Oprah saying he's a demon follower. He's a follower. He created his Church of Set. And there are a variety of witnesses saying that when they were children, they were molested by him and molested in his daycare, and then programmed to be operators, where they did a shift, like with Sirhan, who killed Bobby Kennedy Sr. Right? And look at Harvey Oswald. Look at the look that's in their face. Look at the look of all these people. Parties say, "Oh, well, it's just a shock that they've been arrested or they've been taken in, and they're in shock, just trying to deal with all the sensory overload of being in front of a TV reporting crew, etc., etc." No, there's something extra in there. Look past that. There's something extra in their eyes. And you know what? Even look at the eyes of frickin' the old newsreels of not old news, but the old footage of frickin' Epstein. Look at Epstein. There's another kind of look in his face. And if you've been following David Icke, you know about the reptilians and that reptilian look in his face, like he's trying to understand what it means to be a human. And what is a possession? What is happening in this world when they talk about possession? When you're possessed by the dark side to do evil things. How does that come about? It's just wild. I mean, yeah, I've been going down some really dark tunnels just reading this stuff. Publicly available. Just so I know it's there. It reminds me of the level of people. These are the people you pop. These are the kind of people who are going... Well, there's going to be two kinds of people. There's going to be the people who are just trying to stay alive and feed their families, and they're going to go to some very dark parts of themselves, which is to rob you, to steal from you, as they have through centuries. And this is what they push. They push us into these environments by changing our environment, where we have such a level of abundance in this country that people can't even understand it. It's wild that people... It's interesting. I was looking a few years ago. I was wondering about the music. Okay, so in the '60s, when the wars were going on and we had all the strife in the streets, all throughout the West, all being directed by the Soviets, pushing it. You know, Bezmenov. Have you ever seen the Yuri Bezmenov's interview? You know, by G. Edward Griffin from the '80s, and he's talking about how they came in. They succeeded. They succeeded even after the Soviet Union's gone. That's wild. This is how this stuff works. All the stuff that was designed in 1908 by the Carnegie Endowment that I've talked to you about, from the Senate Committee findings, that you can easily find. Just type in Senator Reece, R-E-E-C-E, Committee findings, the report. It's available. Or Norman Dodd, D-O-D-D. Read his report. I call it the Cliff Notes. 16 pages. It's a quick read. And even that is freaking mind-blowing. But these people have succeeded long after they're dead. And it's wow. You listen to David Icke, and how do you keep these people online? How do you keep an initiative going for so many decades? And his view is there's this dimension, these people, these entities, these dark entities who live off our strife. They live off the energy, this low frequency energy that we create when we're in fear and terror, like when these children are being abused, when they're being sacrificed, when they're being killed, when people are being killed, when they're doing these ceremonies at NASA or at forgetting the accelerator that they got in CERN. Yeah. Before they're doing another experiment, they were doing this ceremony. And people, oh no, it's just a joke. And I said, no, it's not a joke. And people were filming it and making it look, oh well, it can't be true. It's just they're just putting on their black robes and getting together. It's like Eyes Wide Shut. And what happened to the director after that? Goners. Did he really die from natural causes? And people have this disbelief. It's can it happen? It's like my disbelief of being told when I was in freaking Honduras and I was working with a contractor. We're training Contras. We're training Contras to go fight the Sandinistas. So here I am in the jungle. And here's this guy. I got to watch what I say because people who know could easily find this person. How am I going to say this? So in Vietnam, he was a Marine, and he was a good Marine. And then he comes back. He's such a good Marine that he becomes one of the Presidential Guard, because the Presidential Guard is picked from the Marine Corps. And while he's flying because the Marine Guard flies with the president, and this is Johnson at the time, LBJ, the the two most evil, corrupt people in our politics to this point right now have been LBJ and Hillary Clinton. Those are the two most corrupt. Even Billy isn't as corrupt as Hillary. That's how bad it is. But LBJ had a map out talking to his advisors, to the council, and he was telling them, this is where my wife's company has paid the communists, the Viet Cong, not to attack the construction sites. He remembered those construction sites, my colleague at the time. And then he went back and he went to combat again. And I'm not going to say what kind of unit, because that would be an easy way to peg him, especially since he's working for the CIA as a contractor, but he was a Marine. So he's with his I won't even say what kind, his unit. He's with his unit, and they get contact, and they're fighting it out with the Viet Cong, and the numbers are too high, and so but before he told his unit, says, if we ever get ambushed and we're in this area, there's this construction site, we DD over here. And so they DD'd over there. And about 100 yards out, the VC stopped. And here they were protected in the construction site. And he said, let them have it. And he freaking just they unleashed, but the other guys could not shoot back. And so they freaking DD'd. And so they left. So it saved his life. But think about it. The President of the United States, his wife, is paying off the enemy, supposed enemy of our military forces in Vietnam, to not attack their construction sites. When I got back to the States, I told my dad, and it was like a light went off in his mind, and he immediately, and I forget the name of the construction company, but it belonged to Lady Bird Johnson. So Lady Bird was the money woman. She was the sugar mama, and she was the one who was helping her husband get through, and through that they were making it. It's the opposite of Pelosi. So Pelosi, her husband, is the guy making all the money off all the deals that she's making as a congresswoman over there in D.C. as a politician. So she comes from a mafia family in Baltimore. This is how our country has been hijacked from us. And when enough people recognize this, we will all get together, and then we really will kumbaya. And I don't think this is the kumbaya that the elites want, because it'll be the 1776, which, by the way, people don't realize what that was. It wasn't about the tea or the tax on tea. Nobody gave a damn about the tax on tea. It was the idea that the monarchy, specifically, actually, the city of London, because by that time, the city of London was totally 100% owned by the Rothschilds, and totally in control of the country, was trying to take away our currency. And they did take our currency, and they put us on their currency, where you could not buy anything except in British currency, because we had our own colonial currency. And that's why we were thriving. Once we got away from under the slavery internment of the central bank of the Rothschilds, we were doing fantastic. Just like the Swiss. Right? We'll talk about the Swiss and why they became rich. Started with mercenaries, and mercenaries coming home with gold. Taking that gold and saying, hey, why don't we lend it so that other royals can buy their own armies? And suddenly they move from being mercenaries to being bankers. And that's how it all got going. It's actually a great story to understand. I would like the United States to follow that model. Because there's always going to be a bunch of people in the rest of the world who want to go and kill each other. And if they want to do it, fine. It's their deal. It's none of our business. It is none of our business. But if they want the business of finance, then we should be doing it. The United States should be the Switzerland of the world, not Switzerland. But then we'd have competition, right? Isn't it interesting that Switzerland took our Constitution and has followed most of it more so than we have in the United States? I find that mind-blowing. That they have followed the U.S. Constitution better over the years, but they've been losing it, i.e. their own elites have been trying to disarm them too. But you have to join the army in order to get a gun, which is bullshit. You should be able to go and buy your own gun. And if you're such an idiot that you shoot yourself in the head with it, well, because you're just being an idiot. And guess what? You just removed yourself through the Darwin Award. So someone who's smarter and pays attention. See, this is the thing. We have developed into a weak people because things that used to take us out, like typhoid. Typhoid could have killed me when I was a kid. Why? Because of a mistake. The fruit was not washed. I lucked out. I'm alive. But you know, it woke me up to know that. And that's why I paid attention to more things in my life that would have killed other people. That's called evolution and strengthening. But what we've had, it's like a conversation I had when I was a returning student at San Francisco State. And there was another student from Russia, good friend of mine at the time. And we were talking because he was going into genetics. And he one day we're sitting there, at the student union, just eating, having lunch, and he pointed out a guy in a wheelchair. He said, "You see that guy right there?" And he had these infirmities about him. He says, "You know that guy? That guy would not be alive now if it went back in the day. It's only because of what has happened in terms of development of genetic research and which he was in, and medicine and the improvements of medicine that enabled him to survive." Is that good or is that bad? You tell me. Do you think that all the medication, all the benefits that we've received in this world, has it made us a better people? Or has it prevented us from being a stronger and better people as a whole? Because of the individuals who survived each of our own trials, instead of being protected from them, which means, again, good times create soft men. They create bad times. And that's where we're on our way. We're on that we reached the bell curve. We've reached the top of the bell curve, and we're now on our way back down. And that's where we're at right now. It's so freaking wild. We're watching the decline. And we're not watching just the decline of the United States. We're watching the decline of the whole world. And people talking about, well, I'm going to go to the UAE. I'm going to go and live in Dubai. I'm going to go and live in Switzerland. I'm going to go and live in, it used to be Sweden. Sweden used to be one of the best places to get away. Shoot, that's why Webb. Was it David Roger Webb, the guy that wrote the Great Taking? You should read that book too, because that's what they're doing. They're taking it. They're redistributing. It's a wealth redistribution, but not to the poor people. It's being redistributed to the wealthy. They're taking it. And that's why I tell people, it says, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. If you've got gold paper, meaning you've got gold stocks, I hope you're ditching them and trading them in for real gold, and you actually own that gold. Same with silver. Because paper will not mean anything. It's fiat. There's no difference between stocks and fiat currency. If you don't have real money, I'm going to reiterate, real money is gold and silver. Fiat currency, see, banks cannot control gold and silver. They can only do that by fixing the price, which doesn't really matter when the banks collapse. And the banks collapse when they can't play the game anymore with their fiat currency. And we're getting to that point. That's why they're trying to push us on to digital banking and digital currency. Because if they get digital currency on us, then we are China. all the way around the world, and you will have no free speech. They won't even think about removing the First Amendment from our Constitution because it won't matter. You won't go and say anything. That's the big experiment. The big experiment has been, as they're doing in Argentina, and my doctor friend had postulated, is that it's an experiment to see how far people will go, are willing to go, before they'll do something about it. And they're not doing a damn thing. And we're not doing a damn thing. The worst part about it is the only ones who are doing a damn thing are the people we don't want doing a damn thing, which is Antifa, BLM, and all the commies. Because it's then going to be just like Russia, as I've said before, with the serfs and the Russians and the Russian people. That's what happened. That's one of the reasons you cannot let Bolsheviks take over. You cannot let them continue to keep on achieving what they're achieving. Because if they keep on chipping away, and they don't just get totally freaking ground down to the bottom like we did in foreign countries, if you let it happen here, and they keep on achieving what they've been achieving, and they've been achieving a lot because people are not doing anything, they win. Just like they did in Russia. The Bolsheviks will win. The silent majority means nothing. It means nothing in terms of control. I mean, how many people are okay with the idea that our government is controlled by Israel? Are you okay with it? I'm not okay with it. Especially, and if somebody brings, but it's a Jewish, no, it's not a Jewish thing. It's a Zionist thing. Zion is only Jew in name, and it's using Jews as the whipping boy for the cabal. That's what it is. Because they know that Jews will not go against other Jews. Because they say they're Jews. Oh, well, I won't say anything about that. Well, Norman Finkelstein, thank God for Norman Finkelstein, or Finkelstein, depending on the way you want to pronounce it. He's the only one. He's the only one who calls out the idea of the Holocaust and how it's been used to get people, oh, well, we had the Holocaust. Well, what about all the people who got killed in Cambodia? Nobody says anything about them. Nobody says about the millions that were killed in Russia because of the Soviets. Oh, but it's only about the Nazis because who controls the media? Think about that. Yeah. So I'll probably get censored on this again. So that's a question that I was hit with, which is actually a fantastic question. What is the reason that your podcast doesn't reach more audience? Well, let me tell you. Because I'm censored. I've been censored not just on YouTube. I've been censored for a while. I think I have an idea when it really started. Because, see, I'm not part of the agenda. Do you know when I was part of the agenda? I thought about it. I said, why did I have such international acclaim and so much reporting on my story when I was released in Vietnam? The reason was the agenda was to take people's minds off and distract from Iran-Contra. Iran-Contra was happening already in 1983-84. It just hit the epic, the bell curve, remember, in 85-86. So if you want to distract people, and you got some guy who's looking for American MIAs in Vietnam and gets taken prisoner, and he's 18 years old, and people didn't know that I was actually a naval officer candidate at the time. I was still in the Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps. I did not sign my papers, my discharge papers, until the summer after I got back. And I went back to Berkeley, and they said, whoa, I thought you were already out of here. And so I went to the chief petty officer and said, I'm signing out. And he said, oh, here it is. And I signed out. Oh, by the way, I can't find any freaking record of me having been a naval midshipman. Totally disappeared. So did the agency go and do that so there was no connection to me if I got killed in Central America? I think so. What do you think? But we have pictures. I've posted pictures in prior stuff. Yeah. Me with my unit at Pensacola Naval Air Station when we were going through INDOC and we were learning how to fly the simulator. Yeah. I've always had a bug for flying. Yeah, ever since I was a kid. Because we're flying in planes everywhere, all the time, right? So the censorship, why am I censored? I'm censored because I'm not part of the agenda. And when I'm part of the agenda, like Sean Ryan and Scott Mann and Andy Stumpf and Ironclad, if you're part of the agenda, you get funding. You get lots of funding. I don't get any funding. I'm speaking to you directly. That's why I said I'm speaking to the people who are not sheeple. The sheeple follow whatever those people do and tell them and get them all ramped up and get them all, oh, listen to this and listen to that. Oh my God. That's what it's about. It's about getting you in crisis and divisive. You're a Democrat. You're a Republican. Forgetting that if you're an American, you used to be an American. Can you remember that long? I can remember that it didn't matter. You could actually have a coffee talk. Remember people used to have coffee talks? That's why I'm having a coffee talk with you now. It's the idea that we're just chatting. We're talking about the left. We're talking about the right. We're talking about how they're being used. We're talking about the Jews. We're talking about the Zionists. We're talking about the Judeo-Christians. Shoot, we can even talk about the Mormons. Why does Mormonism fit so well with Frankism? Whoa, don't even say that. Well, if you're not Mormon and you do business with someone who's Mormon, who do you think is going to... Oh, and there's another Mormon who's involved in the negotiation. Who do you think is going to come out better in this agreement? Or as we learned in the Epstein files about the Goyim, like, who does better in the negotiations? Do you think the Goyim does? Or the 2 or 3 other of the chosen people? That's how that game's played, if you're not chosen. That's Frankism. That's flat out Frankism right there. It's not the idea that we're all children under God. It's them and us. And you keep the division of them and us, you create a dynamic that creates this low energy that Ike is talking about. It feeds these entities that he's been talking about. It's very interesting. So if these entities live that long, is that actually the common thread that enables somebody at a board meeting to get together and say, if we wanted to fundamentally change a society, and we realize from our scientists that it's wars, and then they have another meeting years later, maybe 100 years later, 150, so they're 1908. Yeah, 1908, 2008, 120 years later, and they say, hey, what if we started using pandemics, instead of wars to cause people and fundamentally change the society, which they've done? Men and women can't get together anymore. Why? Because they're terrified. Boom. You just took care of recreation. Yeah. People are not going to have kids because men and women aren't getting together. As a matter of fact, men and men are getting together and women are getting together. Wow, boom. You just changed that societal base, right? Or you got them all drugged out on whatever new drug. So they don't have any drive to go and get hooked up. It's all the psyop. It is truly all the psyop, just like Chase Hughes says. It's a psyop. It's a major psyop, and it's being played on us. And we're just a participant. And if you talk to that Roman Polanski, I gotta freaking remember what his name is, the scientist, AI guy. He says we're all just in a matrix. We're just in a video game, basically, in our bodies. But getting back to the censorship. Yeah, so the initial censorship, initial censorship started when I was writing for Human Events. Remember Human Events? It used to be a really good newspaper. This newspaper goes all the way back to the 1940s. It was a conservative newspaper. I neither consider myself a conservative or a liberal. Unless I'm like a liberal in the Thomas Jefferson type of liberalism, which is what Americans used to be, which is we believe in free enterprise, we believe in freedom of the people, we believe in everything in the Constitution, which is in contrast to what it is now, which liberalism is basically commie. There is no liberalism when they call themselves liberalism, because they believe that you shouldn't have freedoms. You should be told what to do. If you have a business, you have to follow what they tell you to do. That's what a liberal is telling you now. Oh, and you got to be taxed heavily so that you can pay for all the bums who don't want to go work. Yeah. But so I wrote for the Human Events. And so at the time, there was a man by the name of Steve Storman. And so my friend, those of you in the military who understand or read The Ultimate Sniper, my friend Major John Placer asked me, he says, can you help us out? The railroad, Eric Holder is railroading him. And they're trying to get him on a murder charge for someone who was picked up with a SEAL team, and he was a paramilitary officer. His prior was he was a Green Beret, and he became a PMU, paramilitary operations officer. And so he was running this operation with a team of SEALs who went and grabbed this guy, brought him back, and the guy died. So they were blaming it on him. So I wrote an article saying, hey, here's my background in Central America working for the agency as a PMO. And I do make a differentiation be a PMU and a PMO. There's a lot of PMOs, and there are very few PMUs, because those guys are blue cards, and PMOs have green cards. If you understand that, you get what I'm talking about. So, when this came out, they sent a bunch of intel officers after me, and they wrote all these articles. You can go see them. Just type in Cork Graham CIA faker. It'll come right up. Yeah. But then you should also write my rebuttals to all those fuckers. Or REMFs. But I've learned of this new this terminology that came out called, what do you call them? The younger generation call them fobbits. So a bunch of these fobbits got together to come after me. And so I put them down. And I put them down in that article. So that was the initial censoring. Because I didn't fit the agenda now. Right? I wasn't fitting with what the cabal is leading everybody towards. And the next time was with, yes, Discovery Channel. I've been heavily censored on YouTube because of Discovery Channel because of this book. And the reason is because this book tells you all the secrets about the media and corporate media. And in corporate media is another tool of the agenda, which is to cause you to do things. So in this book, if you haven't gotten a copy, I would highly recommend it. If you want to understand what's happening now, see, everybody who got this book, or when I was pushing it initially, oh, this is just a book about what happened on the show, and I'm not really interested about what happened in a reality TV show that we know is all fake. And I go, oh, no. See, because you're one of the few enlightened people who understand that reality TV is totally 100% scripted, 100%. Dual survival, naked and afraid. Every one of those is 100% scripted. It's not scripted in the manner where they actually give you actual lines. Sometimes they do. A lot of times they say, well, imagine you're in this place and you think about this in this manner and then speak to us like you're coming from there. Yeah. So it's called ad-libbing. But it's being directed by a director or a showrunner. It's called a showrunner. See, and then they had to change it, because they didn't want to run aground with, or run afoul with, the Screenwriters Guild and the Actors Guild, Screen Actors Guild, right? Because that's where this all came out. The reality TV industry came out from all the, what is it, when all the unions went on strike. So the writers group, the actors, they all went on strike and basically crippled Hollywood. So we can't have that again. So they said, but what we can do is we can do reality TV. Because then we don't have to hire writers, because they're not hiring writers, right? They're just they're hiring advisors. They just happen to write the script. And then they're not hiring directors, they're hiring showrunners. Okay? That's how they play the game. Change the label. And that's like with the commies. They don't call them commies themselves communists anymore. They call themselves liberals. They're liberals. They're not commies. And real liberals more or less have become libertarians. But even they are losing their identity because they don't recognize who they are. And conservatives, neoconservatives, when they started, that's how we got into wars. Because true conservatives are always against war. It's like, why would you go and expend our our money fighting these wars for other countries that don't even want us in there in the first place. Unless you're trying to change those because you're just building the empire and you want to have more control of the resources. So basically raping and pillaging in other countries. And now, as I said before, the chickens have come home to roost, and now they're doing it here. So you're going to see your taxes increase. And it's not going to be spent in the United States. It's going to be spent in order to control other countries and other entities. And more your rights are going to be taken away. But it's going to be for your safety. Because remember what Benjamin Franklin said. Those who are willing to trade... What was it? Those who are willing to trade liberty for a little bit of safety. If you're willing to trade your safety for a little bit of... your liberty for a little bit of safety, then you're worthy of neither safety nor liberty. And he's right. We don't deserve it. That's what we're talking about when they say that every generation deserves the government that they get. Because every generation is willing to trade its liberties, documented liberties, in exchange for the illusion of safety. It's the illusion of safety you got when you say, oh, we're going to have the police department take care of this. So then you have an increase in crimes because the police can't take care of everything. And the criminals know this. So they just bank on the idea, hey, I get caught once for every 10 crimes that I commit. Who's the winner here? Right? And look what's happening right now. They got a 100% success rate with the elites. They have committed crimes that would make your stomach turn. And they're getting away with it. And that's my question. When it was asked by someone else on X, when are people going to hang? When are we going to see these people hanging? Because it's going to get to a point where the fervor just gets so much that people will not be able to take it. So, this is how they're playing the psyop on you. They did the reality TV shows. See, now this is the agenda I'm talking about now. Not just the idea that they're going to make money off of not having to pay screenwriters and actors proper scale, right? According to the union. No, this is much deeper and more insidious, which is you watch reality TV shows and you believe them like a lot of people still do. Even now, they still do. But imagine what it was like before when just about everybody did. I'll have a talk about it with people who think they're so smart that they understand the people and they go into politics, like Harmeet Dillon. Yeah, I went to her to see if she would represent me against Discovery Channel. And she said, well, I don't think I could do anything in here because everybody knows that reality TV shows are fake. And I go, oh, so you have such a disconnect from the populace that you don't get that, which is wild because she's heavy in politics and supposedly protecting our rights. That shows you how fucked we are. Because the people who should know things don't know these things. And the people who think that it's just a reality show, when in reality... Remember, I always like to talk about how when you go into a beach, this is a Marine thing, when you go onto a beach, you got to lay in fire. You just freaking just have those guns on those big battleships. Boom, 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 boom. Just lay it in on that beach so that when you land your forces on that beach, you won't have to fight and get returning fire on the beaches while you're trying to run on the beaches to take the beach, right? That's what reality TV is all about. Reality TV is to get past your conscious. So if you're willing to totally 100% believe and get emotionally involved about finding the treasure, or who's going to win the show, who's going to survive naked and afraid, who's going to be the winner, who's going to survive alone, right? And you're vested because you think they're really freaking having to survive. No, they aren't. It's not real. None of it is real. But then, when you're willing to accept this as real, and they bring you the news, and you're being spoon-fed the news that they want you to know, you're accepting it. And then when they tell you you got to go to war with Russia because they are the evil, and they're using the same words. This is what blew me away. They're using the same words that they were using during the Cold War, like they're still fighting the Soviets. I'm going, Russia is so far away from communism right now. It is just like what Alexander Solzhenitsyn warned us about. We are now the Soviets. He warned us about not becoming the new Soviet Union. And everybody ignored him. And why did they ignore him? Because he was everybody's, golden child until he started talking about Zionism and the Zionists. And talking about the 200-year, his book, The 200-Year Relation. That is when he suddenly went out of favor. Because then the media had to take control of that, right? And who controls the media? You know who controls the media. That's the same media that wanted you. Who's David Zaslav? He was my arch nemesis in my lawsuit. I had to have a lawsuit to keep my First Amendment rights to keep this book. You can buy this book. It took me 3 years to make sure that you could. I hope you get this copy and read this book. Because your children and the actions that we put upon your children, and you, if we live long enough to see the hell that's been continuing, it's going to be bad. So take a look. Read the book. Take it to heart. Dave Zaslav, Zionist. Larry Ellison, Zionist. What's their objective? Total destruction of the United States. Because the United States has to be destroyed, along with the rest of the world, before they can see their Messiah. Think about that. And that is the reason they're in South America. That's why, according to Theodor Herzl, remember, these are Frankists. These people don't believe on God bringing them. See, a traditional Jew, Orthodox Jew, believes that God will bring the Messiah. God will bring heaven on earth. That's what's coming, in their view. But the Zionist and the Frankist says, no, why wait for that? We'll bring it. And they're doing it because they have no code against doing evil things. As a matter of fact, they are implored to do evil things because it causes them to do things. So that's why they have such fire, because they've done such evil things. Pedophilia, all this crap, that it works on their soul, that they have to achieve things. They have to make a better world here because of the bad things that they've done. Think about that. Jacob Franks, when he came up with all this crap, and he's supposedly a reincarnation, they believe in reincarnation of Sabbatif and Sabbationism. And that idea he brought into Frankism. Jacob Franks came up with all this stuff. And it was picked up by Theodor Herzl. And that's why Theodor Herzl is an atheist. And Jacob Franks is an atheist. Was an atheist. This is some evil stuff. I mean, you read this. I mean, there's books. I'll put lists. You can go read them. Read them yourself. It's their books. Jews write these books in order to warn people, do not do this. But if you're not practicing and you're not paying attention, and you got a rabbi who is a Frankist, and he's teaching you stuff, you're going down a very horrible door. Well, I realize we're long into it. I'll talk about the pew-pews later. Because, ladies, and that's just everybody, if you live in the United States, you should believe in the Second Amendment, because it's going to be very important to you very soon, if not already, depending on where you live. Because all this chaos that they're doing, they're going to be ramping it up more and more. They have a deadline now. They realize that more and more people are getting hip. You're listening to me. I've listened to others. And we're spreading the word. That's why I hope that you like and subscribe here. And you share this episode and other episodes that I've had, that I've talked with you on Coffee with Cork, and share it out. And hopefully I won't get freaking banned. We'll see how long. It'll be interesting. So if I talk and then suddenly I am not talking to you again, ever, well, bon voyage, mon ami. Man, this is the world we're in. This is the world we have let come. Remember, our Our ancestors would not have allowed this. We are allowing this, and that gives it license to continue. So hopefully I don't get censored again, like really hard, like I was before. Now it's just like, because when Discovery was hammering me, oh man, that's the reason. I'll give you a little. So in the deposition, when I had to fly to DC, the lawyers asked me, why did you have a title so long? So you want to be a reality TV star? Everything I learned about sex, drugs, fraud, rock and roll, and vipers as team leader of Discovery Channel's Treasure Quest Snake Island. Why did I have such a long title and such a long subtitle? You people who are in search engine optimization, SEO, you recognize that somebody types in Treasure Quest, types in search Snake Island, types in my name, types in reality TV, types in Discovery Channel. I'm going to pop up somewhere. And I popped up enough times. The Discovery doesn't broadcast the show Treasure Quest Snake Island in the United States anymore. But they're making bank in the translations in other countries, or even in English. So the UK still had the show. Australia, I still get fans writing to me from Australia. It's just in the United States. Think about that. It's not broadcast. It was the number one new hit series for Discovery Channel 2015. That's a moneymaker right there. So I hit him in the wallet. I felt good about that. And I still can publish the book. And they have no say over anything else that I have to say about the subject. Because I don't really have anything other to say than it was a psyop. And it continues to be a psyop. It's all about getting you to believe the media, the corporate media. And corporate media includes Discovery Channel. It includes ABC. It includes CBS and all their news platforms. And it includes even something as seemingly benign as The Late Show. And Stephen Colbert, on his show, having the operator that you saw previously, where I took you through with Maria Stefan, Dr. Maria Stefan, who is a PSYOP specialist for color revolutions, and she's on a late night show. That's the agenda in your face. I mean, it can't be any more in your face. So in contrast to me coming back from Vietnam in '84 and being covered by every news service around the world, and especially in the United States, because it distracted for the Reagan administration from the Iran-Contra sticky wicket. That now they're just putting it in your face that what we're doing is we are doing a color revolution, and you got to join us with our colors. Come on, we're doing it with the fox. We're doing it with the rat, with the dragon and the frog. It's in your face now. Be forewarned. Be safe. Next time we'll talk about the pew-pews. I had the little one right there. I've got like 3 of them I was going to show you for my EDC. Because you got to be ready. This stuff is going down. And it's going to be in small little... It's kind of like, you know, one of my favorite combat scenes that it resonated with me? Wasn't one from searching, was it Private Ryan? No, it was actually Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis. That movie. Watch a scene where they've relinquished the fort to the French and they're making their way, and they get ambushed by was it the Iroquois? Yeah, the Iroquois and the Mohawk. Yeah, and you start seeing the first shot, and then another shot, another musket goes off, and then another, and then it's just a big volley of muskets gets going. That's how these revolutions and these wars start. Civil wars, they start off with a shot here, a shot there, an explosion here, an explosion there, and then the whole country gets lit off. And then so it starts off boom, 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 boom. That's how civil wars get going. And they're trying to find out how far people are willing to go. Even though they are using the left, all these Antifa, BLM to push people. They're trying to push people. And the question is, are the people going to react towards the people who are doing the pushing, who are just tools, fools, useful idiots, or are they going to go after the people who are running it? See, that's what I'd like to see happen. Because then we can have, again, the freedoms in this country that we, well, not in our lifetime, but we did in the first, 20, 40 years of this country after its birth. For that moment was the true freedom of this country. But then the bankers started coming in and they started working their way in through benign ways. Oh, we'll just advise Hamilton. And everybody talks about Hamilton. Oh, well, he was great because he made us have an independent central bank. But was it really that independent? You listen to Promethean updates and it's like, oh, that's interesting. But it misses a lot of stuff. Like missing the idea that we have confirmed pedophiles that are walking around that should be hanging right now or should be in prison because they're unredeemable. That's the question that's happening right now in this country, in this world. And it's around the world. And it is a spiritual war. It's wild for me to say that it's a spiritual war. Even though I used to say that communism was a religion. I still do. Communism is a religion, and Islam is a political front. That's it. And when you look at it from those point of views, you understand why is it that communism keeps on coming? Even though it's proven to not work, but you've got a new group. They come up and they go, wow, we're going to free the people, and we're going to be under this communist state together. Kumbaya. Until they start throwing you to the concentration camps, to the work camps. Yeah, I'll tell you the story about my friend's grandfather in Russia when the Bolsheviks showed up. Yeah, he's an old believer. One traditional old believers living up at the head of the bay. Man, came and took everything. Took everything. That's why I say, you can go to wherever you're going to go. But if you cannot defend your land and you're not given the rights under the laws of that country to defend your land from tyranny, then you have nowhere to go. Because you can only buy off so many. There are people in Latin America who are buying off the local police, buying off the local tax collectors, buying off the local government people. What happens when the government changes? And are you going to be able to buy them off too? You can only buy off so far. And the thing is, if you bought off one side, you get a lot allied in the mindset of the others who are on the other side. So when it changes, you actually go under with that side. Remember that. That's a whole problem. Even here in the country. When the Tories lost, they didn't get to stay here. The end of the first American Civil War, they were sent to Canada. Leave. You forfeit your lands. And they did. Happens everywhere. And the question is, who's going to forfeit their lands because they allied with the tyrants and the evilness, or they allied with the Constitution in this country? And that's especially the politicians that we have. Because right now, maybe Thomas Massey is probably the only one that I could think of who's trying to protect the country as the country is defined under the Constitution. We've already lost so much under the guise of safety, like the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act being a total sham. So, hopefully I answered the question from Claudia Zors 2000 that I got 3 days ago. Hopefully that was answered. Yeah, it started under the Obama administration. And they didn't like what I was writing, so they sicked their little dogs on me. That was fine. I got an opportunity to respond. So it's the question of who you believe. And then the second time was Discovery Channel, who I am still dealing with. Because I did have my channel that I was selling books on, but it didn't have the same effect when I was marketing my bamboo chess book years ago that had no censorship whatsoever on it. But everything changed when I went after Eric Holder. And he knows my name. And then from that, it jumped to David Zaslav. CEO of Discovery Channel and all the other. Oh, Disney now. Is that Disney? Yeah, they got Disney too. See, it's insidious. They go in and so they control and get these monopolies. Once they got these monopolies, they control all your media that's coming to you. And then they get into media, the social media, and they get into YouTube. So you can basically guess, like Whitney Webb, whenever she pops on, or she gets to pop on, or David Icke. David Icke's channel is now opening up. It's amazing that he's opening up, talking about stuff that people thought was nuts before, but now people are starting to realize, wow, maybe he wasn't so nuts. And what Whitney Webb's talking about. I got questions about her, though. We'll talk about them later. Why is she still walking? Why is she still alive? Because if she's that well read into what's been happening, people like that, you're either part of the agenda or you're dead. Me? I only know what I'm able to grasp and pull out from publicly available information. I have no top secret stuff. And anybody who thinks that, because of my prior background, it's just like everybody else. Once you're out, you're out. You might be led, like Sean, as a useful idiot, who, I'll show you how much of an idiot he is. You get hints. I just watched another hint where he can't believe this, and he can't believe this, or he needs to be told about a definition of a word that a child would know. Why does he not know that? And remember, he was a drug dealer. And when you walk down the road of being a drug dealer or trying to be a cartel leader, you've crossed the line. You don't come back from that line, except doing prison time. Did you see him doing prison time? I haven't seen him doing prison time. I'll go into that later. I think it's time. We'll talk about that. Stay safe. If you live in a state, you live in a country where you can carry 24/7. I do. Puts me at ease. It'll put you at ease. Second Amendment is there for a reason. Whether you're in Switzerland or the United States, on that level. Stay safe. Watch your six. And God bless.